What happens when the master of an empire becomes a shadow in his own realm, when the truth hides beneath every polished facade, waiting for a single spark to ignite decades of buried secrets? Picture stepping into a world you forged with your own hands, only to discover it has betrayed every principle you once held dear. This is a tale of pride clashing with humility, of a forgotten heritage reshaping the future. Meet Jet Callahan, a motorcycle magnate turned mysterious outsider, embarking on a quest to reclaim the soul of Thunder Road Motors. Strap in, because this journey is packed with unexpected turns, heart-wrenching revelations, and ultimate redemption. Stay with me to witness how one choice alters everything, and how a worn-out photograph unravels a decade of regret. Are you ready for a ride that'll leave you questioning what truly matters? At 52, Jet Callahan stood quietly at the edge of Thunder Road Motors, Arizona's premier motorcycle dealership, a powerhouse he had grown from the modest garage his father founded in the 1970s. Clad in a weathered leather jacket reeking of aged oil, boots scuffed with desert dust, and a grizzled salt and pepper beard, Jet resembled a down-on-his-luck rider rather than the owner of a multi-million-dollar empire. His weary eyes, shadowed by countless restless nights, surveyed the showroom, a space once filled with his father's. Warm chuckles and steadfast values, now humming with gleaming chrome, sharp sales pitches, and an unsettling chill that clashed with his nostalgic memories. Thunder Road Motors wasn't just a business. It was a sacred inheritance woven into Jet's core, a bond handed down from father to son. Old Man Callahan had built it on a simple creed: ride with honor. Every transaction was sealed with a handshake, every customer treated as kin. Jet could still see his dad, grease-streaked apron hanging loose, wiping his hands on a rag while swapping life stories with riders, not just eyeing their wallets. But after his father's death a decade ago, Jet had taken over, expanding aggressively across the Southwest, hiring new blood and chasing revenue to rival corporate giants. Lately, murmurs of dubious sales tactics and customer grievance picked up from anonymous online rants, and hushed talks at trade shows gnawed at him like a stubborn engine sputter. Were these mere rumors, or had he drifted too far from his father's path? Today, disguised as an undercover boss, Jet aimed to uncover the truth through the eyes of those his father had always put first. Hovering near a vintage Harley, its chrome glinting under harsh showroom lights, Jet watched his staff with a sinking heart. The space felt like a stage, polished bikes and forced grins masking a transactional edge that jarred with the warmth of yesteryears. His gut twisted as he spotted Dex, a slick salesman with a flashy earring and a smile devoid of sincerity, prowling toward customers with predatory ease. Playing the curious buyer, Jet haggled over prices he knew inside out. Looking for a bike? Pal, we've got deals so sweet you'll think we're bleeding cash, Dex quipped, his grin all surface and no soul. Jet nodded, rubbing his beard thoughtfully, but as Dex tossed in talk of hidden fees, just a minor processing charge, standard fare, Jet's blood simmered. This wasn't his father's way. He recalled Old Man Callahan turning down an upsell to a young couple, muttering, "They need a ride, not a wait." Clenching his jaw, Jet wondered how deep this corruption had seeped into the empire he'd sculpted. Before Jet could challenge Dex, two men shuffled into the showroom, their slumped shoulders and heavy steps betraying lives worn thin by struggle. Brody, a stocky mechanic with hands stained black from grease and a faded cap pulled low, and Vance, a lean figure in a tattered army jacket, eyes hollow with unspoken battles, seemed to carry the weight of the world. Jet caught their murmured exchange near a row of second-hand bikes, their words slicing through the showroom's drone. "No chance we're getting a square deal here," Vance grumbled, scuffing the floor with a battered boot, his tone rough from years of hardship. "Gotta try, though. My girl's depending on me," Brody rasped, his voice breaking under a father's burden, fingers pressing against his brow. "Sold my truck to cover her chemo. "This bike's my last shot to get her to the hospital." Jet's pulse quickened as he saw Dex zero in on them, sensing weakness like a hawk spotting prey. Brody gestured to a weathered bike in the corner. Paint chipped but frame solid a machine Jet knew was overpriced on the tag, yet could be a lifeline if sold fairly. "What's the cost on that one?" Brody asked, a faint glimmer of hope in his exhausted gaze, his tone wavering with quiet plea. Dex smirked, lounging against a nearby bike with smug ease, polished shoes mocking Brody's worn soles. "That relic, $8,500, take it or leave it." Brody's face crumpled, shoulders sagging as if deflated, hands balling into helpless fists. But the online ad listed it at $4,000. He argued faintly, fumbling with his phone to show proof, a desperate grasp at fairness. Dex shrugged, barely glancing over, his dismissal cold. "System glitch. Price jumped this morning. Deal with it." Jet's fists tightened under his jacket sleeves, nails biting into his palms as he battled to maintain his facade. He saw the anguish in Brody's stare, the tremble in his hands as he mentally juggled impossible figures, likely picturing his daughter waiting, needing him to make this work. Vance stepped up, his frame rigid with fury, voice cutting sharp. "You're bleeding people dry. This place had decency once. Old man Callahan wouldn't have preyed on folks in need." Dex sneered, his earring catching the light with cruel glint. "Callahan's gone. His son calls the shots now, and he's after profits, not charity. Whine elsewhere if you don't like it." The words struck Jet like a hammer, each one a blow to the heritage he'd vowed to uphold. His breath hitched, the room tilting as visions of his father's generosity, gifting helmets to kids, mending bikes for vets, collided with the grim scene unfolding. Unable to hold back, Jet yanked off his sunglasses, his voice quaking with rage and remorse, his disguise shattered in a surge of raw feeling. "You're done, Dex." The showroom stilled, chatter dying as all eyes swung to the confrontation. Dex blanched, his smug mask slipping as he stuttered. "Mr. Callahan, I didn't get out." "Now," Jet snapped, his glare searing, leaving no room for debate. Dex snatched his belongings and bolted, leaving a stunned hush behind. Staff and customers gawked, some in shock, others with silent nods of approval. Jet felt every stare, but his focus locked on the two men before him and who echoed the very people his father had championed, people Jet had overlooked in his chase for success. Turning to Brody and Vance, Jet softened his tone, though it still trembled with lingering emotion, his heart pounding from the clash. "That bike's yours. $4,000, no extra charges, as advertised." Brody's eyes brimmed with tears, his calloused hands swiping at his face to mask vulnerability, his sturdy frame shaking with relief. "I can't thank you enough, sir," he murmured, gratitude thickening his words. A father's load briefly eased. Vance, arms crossed, studied Jet with a blend of wariness and intrigue, his weathered features carved by hard-earned insight. "Why the charade? You own this joint. Why play the broke drifter?" Jet paused, the question's gravity pressing down like a stone. He glanced at the bike Brody now held keys to, then at the showroom once a home, now a battleground, to find out if my dad's spirit still lived here or if I'd buried it myself. As a jittery junior salesman processed Brody's paperwork, stealing glances at Jet, Vance stayed close, his gaze far off as if caught in memory, fingers brushing the frayed edge of his jacket. "I knew your old man," he said softly, his rough timbre steady with history. "Fixed my ride for nothing once when I couldn't scrape together a penny. Said a man's value isn't in his cash, but his promise." Jet's throat constricted. Those were the exact words his father had drilled into him the day he passed the dealership's reins, a lesson Jet had cherished as a boy, but neglected as a mogul. Vance dug into his pocket, producing a faded, dog-eared photo, edges worn from time. It captured a younger old man Callahan, beaming beside Vance's bike, both smeared with grease yet radiant, the desert suns stretching their shadows long, held onto this for 2 decades. He drove me to the hospital when my wife was fading, stayed till the end, never asked for a cent. Jet stared at the image, vision blurring as he traced his father's familiar grin with a shaky finger, a deep pang stirring in his chest. "I didn't know," he whispered, barely audible, regret choking him for the untold tales and lost teachings he'd ignored. Vance's reply was gentle yet piercing, slicing through Jet's walls. "Maybe you stopped searching, maybe you forgot what this place stood for." Those words haunted Jet long after Vance departed with Brody, the photo still gripped in his hand, a fragile tether to a past he'd let fade. That night, alone in the deserted showroom, Jet perched on a stool by the vintage Harley, fingers brushing the photo's edge, re-evaluating every choice since he took over. Had he swapped integrity for gain? Had he lost the essence of Thunder Road Motors? The photo seemed to gaze back, a quiet rebuke from a man whose boots Jet felt unworthy to fill, a man who'd built a community, not just a company. The next morning, Jet didn't retreat to his sleek corner office, overlooking Phoenix, a sterile space of trophies and deals that now felt empty. Instead, he lingered on the showroom floor, still undercover, engaging employees and customers as a wandering rider, his tattered jacket a shield from recognition. He needed to gauge the full scope of decay in his company, whether Dex was a lone bad seed or a sign of a broader malaise he'd let fester under his distant watch. Over the following days, he unearthed more tales of avarice, sales reps jacking up prices on used bikes, supervisors pushing staff to hawk unneeded extras like inflated warranties, and patrons leaving feeling duped, their faith in Thunder Road shattered. Each account stabbed at Jet, a stark reminder of how far he'd strayed from his father's vision, turning a haven for riders into a profit mill. One afternoon, Jet shared a bitter cup of vending machine coffee with Maria, a veteran cashier who'd served since his father's era, her silver hair pulled into a tight bun, her kind eyes dulled by fatigue. Posing as a chatty stranger, he probed about the shifts she'd witnessed. Maria's gaze drifted as she spoke, fingers nervously twirling a pen, her voice quiet yet laden with reminiscence. "Your dad knew every face that walked in, had spent hours just listening, ensuring they left smiling even without a purchase. I recall a teenager once, barely 16, wanting a part to surprise his father. Your old man gave it free, saying, 'Family outranks a sale. Now it's all quotas. New bosses care only for numbers.' I've watched good folks quit, unable to stomach the deceit." Her words hit Jet like a mirror reflecting his own shortcomings, a truth he'd dodged too long. He flashed back to a childhood scene, his father slashing the price of a bike for a single mom so her son could have a birthday gift, tossing in free tune-ups for a year. "A bike's more than steel," his dad had said, gripping Jet's shoulder with a rough, warm hand. "It's freedom, it's connection. Don't ever forget." Jet had forgotten. Obsessed with scaling up, planting branches across states, he'd lost the personal touch that defined Thunder Road. Had brought in corporate sharks who viewed customers as digits, not lives. And now he faced the cost not of money, but of trust. Later, Jet overheard a tense exchange in the repair bay between two mechanics, their voices low over the clatter of tools. "I'm sick of this," one growled, scrubbing oil from his hands, disgust creasing his face. "They push us to skimp, use junk parts, charge triple. I didn't join to scam people." The other nodded, slamming a wrench down, jaw clenched. "Yeah, but what's the fix? The guy upstairs doesn't give a damn, probably counting his cash while we lie to customers." Hidden behind a stack of tires, Jet felt shame burn through him, hot and suffocating. These were his crew, people who trusted his leadership, and they believed he was indifferent. He realized the issue wasn't just Dex, or a few rogues, it was a toxic culture had permitted by being absent, favoring boardroom wins over garage grit, letting ambition blind him to his roots. Another day, Jet spoke with a longtime patron, Ed, who'd shopped at Thunder Road for decades. Ed's expression darkened as he shared a recent slight. "Used to feel like family here. Last time they overcharged me for a tire I could have gotten cheaper online. No apology when I called them out. Your dad would have been mortified." Jet nodded, feigning empathy as a fellow biker, but internally each word was a gut punch. Ed was right. His father would have been appalled, not just at the staff, but at Jet, the heir who'd let this rot spread. Moved by Mariah's candor, Vance's keepsake photo, Ed's disillusionment, and the mechanic's raw frustration, Jet knew it was time to shed the mask. He summoned a company-wide meeting that Monday, standing before his team, not as a hidden observer, but as Jet Callahan, the leader who'd let things unravel. The showroom brimmed with staff from clerks to wrench turners, watching with a mix of curiosity and unease, the air thick with tension. "I've let you down," he confessed, voice unpolished and raw, resonating in the hushed space, hands braced on a display bike for steadiness. "I've betrayed my father's dream. I got so consumed with expanding this business that I forgot its true purpose. But starting now, we're returning to the values that made Thunder Road a name people believed in." Jet outlined immediate reforms, transparent pricing on every sale, a customer-first ethos with no-hassle returns, and bonuses for staff who placed ethics above targets. He dismissed 2 managers known for pushing shady deals, promoting veteran employees who still embodied Old Man Callahan's spirit. He offered Vance a role as head mechanic, valuing his tie to his father's memory to keep the dealership's heart alive. Brody received not just the bike at the fair price, but a small fund Jet established for his daughter's medical costs, a gesture that left the rugged man speechless, eyes glistening as he gripped Jet's hand in thanks. But Jet understood promises alone wouldn't suffice. He had to prove his intent. That night he stayed late, personally dialing customers who'd posted scathing reviews over the past year. One, a retiree named Hank, had been overbilled for a repair. "I thought Thunder Road stood for something," Hank grumbled over the line, disappointment roughening his tone, each word a jab at Jet's failures. Jet apologized, refunded the overcharge, and threw in a free tune-up as amends. "My dad founded this on integrity," Jet said, voice firm despite the ache in his throat. "I'm working to restore that." Hank hesitated, then eased up. "I knew your old man. If you're even half as good as him, he'll give you another chance." That call, and many like it, marked Jet's initial strides on a tough path to atonement, each dialogue a step toward mending the broken faith he'd neglected. Jet also pored over every logged complaint late into the night, fueled by black coffee and determination, uncovering patterns, repeated names of staff tied to grievances, driven by outdated incentives favoring profit over principle. He met with them one-on-one, not to scold, but to listen. A young salesman, Tim, admitted, "I hated pushing those extras, but rent's due. I felt cornered." Jet absorbed this, then revamped the pay system to ensure no one felt pressured to compromise morals for a paycheck. It was a subtle shift, but a clear signal he was committed for the long haul beyond mere damage control. To show these weren't empty vows, Jet spent the next months on the floor every weekend, in jeans and a faded tee instead of a suit, often with grease on his hands as he pitched in on small fixes, listening to patrons and staff alike. One Saturday, a timid young woman named Lila entered, clutching a threadbare purse like a lifeline, nerves etched in her tight posture. She needed a bike to commute to a new job as a caregiver, but was strapped after student debt. Jet sat with her for nearly an hour, sifting through options to land on a dependable used bike within her means, even tossing in free maintenance for a year. He watched her test ride it, her anxious frown melting into a relieved smile. "You've no clue what this means," she said, voice cracking as she hugged Jet before pedaling off. A warmth Jet hadn't felt in ages bloomed within him, a glimpse of the pride his father must have known helping someone in need. Another day, a veteran named Carl rolled into Thunder Road Motors on a beat-up scooter, his weathered face lined with stories of struggle, a Vietnam War patch fading on his jacket. He wasn't there to buy but to sell his old motorcycle, a relic of better days, to cover mounting bills after a recent surgery. Jet could see the pain in Carl's eyes as he ran a trembling hand over the bike's scratched tank, as if parting with a piece of his soul. "Rode this through every tough patch after the war," Carl muttered, voice thick with nostalgia. "Hate to let it go, but I got no choice." Jet didn't hesitate. He offered a fair price higher than market value, ensuring Carl walked away with enough to tide him over, and promised to find the bike a good home with someone who'd respect its history. Carl's grip on Jet's hand was firm, gratitude unspoken, but clear in his misty gaze. "Your dad would have done the same," he said before leaving. That moment cemented Jet's resolve. Thunder Road wasn't just about sales. It was about preserving the human connections his father had nurtured. These encounters weren't isolated. Jet made it a habit to connect with every customer who seemed burdened, often stepping away from paperwork to hear their tales. He learned of a single dad, Miguel, who needed a bike to deliver food after losing his car to repossession. Jet worked out a payment plan with no interest, even throwing in a helmet for Miguel's young son, who sometimes tagged along on deliveries. "You're giving me more than a ride, you're giving me hope," Miguel said, his tired smile a reward greater than any quarterly profit. Each story, each face, became a brick in the foundation Jet was rebuilding, a reminder that every bike sold or serviced carried a life behind it, not just a transaction. Jet also turned inward, focusing on his team. He started weekly roundtables, not sterile meetings, but casual sit-downs over coffee in the break room where staff could voice concerns without fear. A shy mechanic, Anna, revealed she'd been skipping breaks to meet repair quotas, worried about losing her job. Jet listened, then adjusted schedules company-wide to prioritize well-being over speed, ensuring no one felt like a cog in a machine. Slowly, the atmosphere shifted. Grins replaced grimaces, and the showroom buzzed with genuine camaraderie, echoing the days when old man Callahan would blast classic rock while tinkering alongside his crew. Jet even brought back an old tradition, hosting monthly rideouts for staff and loyal customers, free events where laughter and open road bonded them beyond business. Watching Anna laugh as she revved her bike on one such ride, Jet felt a flicker of the legacy he'd almost lost. Beyond the walls of Thunder Road, Jet sought to repair the dealership's tarnished name. He partnered with local charities, donating bikes to veterans programs and sponsoring repair workshops for underprivileged teens, teaching them skills while gifting them a sense of purpose. At one workshop, a quiet 15-year-old named Jamal, who'd been in and out of foster care, fixed his first carburetor under Jet's guidance. When Jet handed him the tools to keep, Jamal's guarded expression cracked into a grin. "Nobody's ever believed in me like this," he mumbled, clutching the wrench like a lifeline. Jet saw his father in that moment, teaching not just mechanics, but dignity. These acts weren't PR stunts. They were Jet's way of atoning, of proving Thunder Road could be a beacon again, not a blemish. 6 months into his mission, just as Jet began to see glimmers of the old Thunder Road spirit, an unexpected bombshell landed. A local journalist, tipped off by a disgruntled ex-employee, one other than Dex, seeking revenge, published an expose claiming Jet's undercover stint and reforms were a publicity gimmick, a calculated move to dodge deeper legal scrutiny over past shady practices. The article went viral, painting Jet as a hypocrite who'd only acted after being caught, not out of genuine remorse. Social media erupted with hashtags like Thunder Road Scam, and angry emails flooded Jet's inbox. Customers who'd recently praised his changes now questioned his sincerity, and foot traffic at the dealership plummeted. For the first time since shedding his disguise, Jet felt the ground shake beneath him, the fragile trust he had rebuilt threatening to crumble. Late that night, staring at the damning article on his laptop in the empty showroom, Jet's resolve wavered. The photo of his father with Vance, now pinned above his desk, seemed to judge him harsher than ever. Had he been naive to think he could erase years of neglect with a few good deeds, he almost called it quits, tempted to sell the business and walk away from the scrutiny. But then he remembered Brody's tearful relief, Lila's hopeful smile, and Jamal's newfound confidence. Their faces anchored him. "I didn't start this for applause," he muttered to the empty room, fingers brushing the photo. "I started it for them, for Dad." With renewed grit, Jet decided to face the storm head-on, not with denials, but with raw honesty. The next day, Jet posted an unscripted video on Thunder Road's social channels, sitting not in a polished office but on the showroom floor, surrounded by bikes, his father's old toolbox at his side. "I've made mistakes," he admitted, voice steady but heavy, eyes meeting the camera unflinchingly. "For years, I let this place drift from what my father built. I lost sight of honor for profit, and I'm sorry. My undercover time wasn't a stunt, it was a wake-up call. I can't undo the past, but I can fight for the future. If you doubt me, come see for yourself. Our doors are open, and so is my word." He shared specifics, inviting the journalist for a no-holds-barred interview and offering full transparency on past complaints, with records open for public review. It was a gamble, bearing his flaws to the world, but Jet knew half measures wouldn't rebuild faith. The response was slow but seismic. The journalist accepted, and after a grueling 3-hour session where Jet owned every misstep, published a follow-up piece titled Thunder Road's Second Chance, Real or Ruse. While skeptical, it acknowledged Jet's candor and detailed his reforms, giving readers room to decide. Customers trickled back, some curious, others moved by his vulnerability. One, a longtime rider named Grace, who'd sworn off Thunder Road after a bad deal years prior, walked in after seeing the video. "I didn't believe you at first," she admitted, eyeing Jet warily. "But owning up like that takes guts. He'll give you one shot." She left with a repaired bike and a cautious nod, a small victory that felt monumental to Jet. Deck's smear campaign faded as Jet's actions spoke louder than accusations. Over time, hashtags shifted to #ThunderRoadRises, fueled by stories from Carl, Miguel, and others whose lives Jet had touched. The dealership didn't just recover, it thrived, not on aggressive expansion, but on a reputation reborn through grit and grace. Jet kept Vance's photo on his desk, a daily reminder of why he fought. "I'm not perfect," he'd tell new staff during training, holding up the worn image. "But I'm trying to be the man my father was. Help me get there." As Jet Callahan's journey shows, empires aren't built on steel or dollars, they're forged on trust. A currency harder to earn than any profit. What started as a disguise to uncover rot became a mirror reflecting his own failures, pushing him to rebuild not just a business, but a legacy. The twist of public backlash could have broken him, yet it revealed his true strength, owning his past to pave a new road. So what's the takeaway from Thunder Road Motors' redemption first? Never lose sight of your roots. Jet's drift from his father's values cost him dearly, a lesson for any leader chasing growth over heart. Second, transparency heals. Facing criticism head-on, as Jet did with his raw video, turned skeptics into allies. Finally, impact matters more than images. Small acts, like helping Brody or Jamal, rebuilt trust where grand gestures couldn't. Think about your own life. What values have you strayed from? What small step can you take today to reclaim them? Jet's story is just about motorcycles, it's about rediscovering purpose against all odds. If a man can transform a tarnished empire by facing his flaws, what can you transform in your world? Drop a comment with your thoughts. Have you ever had to rebuild trust, and how did you do it? Hit that like button if Jet's ride inspired you, and subscribe for more stories of grit and comeback. Let's keep rolling together. There's more road ahead.